Okay, I guess we can begin. Hello everyone, thank you for coming to this session today. Before we begin, we are going to talk to you today about ransomware. Raise your hand if somebody you're related to or your organization has been affected by ransomware in some degree. Okay, a lot of hands are up, that's great. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about ransomware from a history, and we're going to look at it from an analysis perspective, from like what's actually happening, and we're going to talk about how we can address mitigating it. Let's see, my name is Andy Thompson. I'm out of Dallas, Texas. I have probably one of the coolest jobs in the entire world. What I get to do is I get to help customers really basically leverage the tools CyberArk provides to the best of its ability. So just making sure you get the most bang for your buck. I have a degree from the University of Texas at Arlington in information systems. I'm a CompTIA A+ and Security Plus. SSCP and CISSP from ISC Squared. And I recently got my GIAC GPen certifications. Very happy about that. I'm actually a certified pen tester. I'm very happily married and I have 2 little girls at home. So I'm typically the hacker guy in the family, but I wanted to show my wife. She is the travel hacker in my family. We go all off to crazy places all the time. This is us up on some weird glacier up in Alaska. This is my daughter Kinley. She is a chip off the old block to her mom. She is an artist and is a crazily cool kid. And the other one is a little firecracker. She takes after me. Her name's Charlotte, and I think she's going to go somewhere into the InfoSec world at some point. Most kids sleep with like teddy bears growing up. Not Charlotte. She sleeps with a keyboard. Yes. His name is Titan. So I'm also a member of the Dallas Hackers Association and Shadow Systems Hacker Collective out of Dallas. So we get to do a lot of cool things and big into the information security community here. So that's why I'm actually here, to help just give back to the community. So give you a rundown of what's going to happen today. We're going to give you a rundown of what actually is happening with ransomware from it. We'll define what it is and how it works. We'll talk about ransomware in the news, some of the most recent infections that have hit the headlines. We'll talk about the timeline, kind of the evolution of ransomware, where it started and to where it is today. And then we're going to do a technical analysis, kind of look at it from 2 different perspectives. We're going to look at it from the infection itself and look at it from the client. But then we're also going to look at what the C2 network looks like, the command and control, and see about that. And then we're going to talk about probably my favorite part, evolved ransomware. Ransomware outside the scope of Windows as an operating system. And then we're going to talk about mitigation techniques, how to actually prevent you, yourself, your enterprise from being compromised by ransomware. So it's cyber extortion. That's what kind of ransomware falls into, is it's extorting you. It's a crime or threat involving an attack or against a person or enterprise coupled by the demand to stop the attack. It takes on multiple forms. It's encrypting data or holding it hostage or basically blocking access to it. But here's the kicker though. There's no guarantee you're actually going to get your data back. So there's 3 main types of extortion that we see in the cyber world today. There's the DDoS extortion, so we'll DDoS your site if you don't pay us a certain amount of money. We have a interesting segment called sextortion, and we'll touch on that later, no pun intended, and ransomware. And that's what we're really going to focus on today. So ransomware itself is defined as leveraging technical controls to inhibit the use of a system or data. It operates on the assumption that the value of the data that they are withholding from you is important enough that you will pay for it. But unfortunately, there's no actual guarantee that you're going to get your data or your systems back. This is a very, very lucrative criminal enterprise. And the Harshvet Group stated in Q1 of 2016, the amount of ransom paid globally was almost $216 million. If you compound that through the rest of the quarters, you're looking at an annual amount of ransom paid up into $1 billion. So here's some other scary stats. The fact is we're only operating with a certain amount of limited data here. Because of the fact that some organizations don't disclose that they have been subjected to ransomware, we don't have that information to go on from a statistical analysis perspective. What we do know now is that HIPAA is trying to improve on that, saying that any breach of ransomware is a compromise of the availability of the data. Are you guys familiar with the CIA triad in information security? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If any one of those three facets is compromised, then that constitutes a breach. And when ransomware compromises the system, you lose the availability to your data. Even if the data is not exfiltrated, it's still a breach. We also, Symantec states that a quarter of American homes actually back up. How many of you actually believe that to be the case? I think it's a lot of crap. I think maybe that we're looking at maybe 5%, maybe less, of nationally that homes people are actually backing up. And then also, and this is probably even a higher statistic, I think that this is actually underestimated, that over the last 12 months, over half of US companies have been affected by ransomware in some degree. Some of the most largest ransoms paid just in the last few years are pretty concerning here. I like this one. That's a very nice file share you've got there. You're ashamed that something happened to it. Los Angeles Valley College recently paid $30,000 in cryptocurrency to pay back to get their systems back. University of Calgary, $20,000. The Presbyterian Medical Center, which shut down many hospitals, patient critical data, they had to pay $17,000 to get this data back. Now, ransomware propagates through different vectors. One of the most damaging doesn't necessarily even affect organizations monetarily. This is called malvertising. Malvertising is using malicious banner ads to propagate exploit kits and malware in order to spread the ransomware. Some of the the exploit kits that we find are Angler, Neutrino, Nuclear, Magnitude. A lot of these you can find on the darknet and hacker forums. They're usually run by Eastern European criminal syndicates, and that's how they start marketing that. Some of the victims, so what you'll do is you'll go to a legitimate website. You go to, Skype, NFL.com, Realtor. All these have been affected by malvertising in some degree. They're serving up malicious content unbeknownst to them because they're not controlling the content on their websites. So here's just a few. New York Times, AOL, eBay, Spotify, Drudge Report. All these have served up malicious content unbeknownst to themselves. What I love about this screenshot here is this is the New York Times. Saying, hey, don't click on the pop-ups, it's unauthorized work to be eliminated. All right, they were affected in March of 2016 with this exact same thing. The date on this one is September 13th of 2009. This has happened to the New York Times multiple times over. It's not cool. All right, so moving forward, we're going to talk about the evolution of ransomware, where it came from, where its humble beginnings are, okay? Funny enough, it actually predates the internet. This is the AIDS virus. This started in 1989. A gentleman by the name of Joseph Popp, he's a doctor, wrote this and was propagating through floppy disks. What it would do is after 90 days, it would re-encrypt the file allocation table. It didn't actually encrypt the files itself, but the access to it. What you do is you write a check and send it to a post office box in Panama, and supposedly you get your data back. What ended up happening was the Scotland Yard ended up investigating it, and they were actually apprehended this gentleman. So he ended up spending 2 years in jail for blackmail. He said that the money that he was raising was actually going to fund AIDS research, but nobody bought it. All right, so let's move forward to the age of the internet. Reviton. You guys may have seen this before. This is the FBI lock screen style of ransomware. What this will do is present an error message or an alert saying, hey, you've been doing bad things on your machine. You need to pay $189 in Kmart gift cards to get the FBI off your case. One, that's not believable. And two, it's very easy to circumvent this and get your systems back. This started in 2011. And again, all it would do is lock you out of your PC. It wasn't doing any actual encryption at that time. So all you had to do was boot into safe mode, change a few registry keys, and you were back in business. Funny, easy enough, right? Well, here's the deal. This type of attack is still in play today. And it has devastating consequences. We have seen a mentally challenged person was affected by this. Thought law enforcement was actually after him and ended up committing suicide. Pretty sad stuff. On the positive side, a lot of criminals are idiots. Okay. I presented the same talk at a fraud investigators summit a while back, and one of the detectives told me, dude, you don't understand, probably twice a month we get somebody that turns themselves in for child pornography because they get this sort of ransomware. So they're turning themselves in because of this. It's great. Yeah. So let's talk about Bitcoin. Are you guys familiar with cryptocurrency? Awesome. I'm so glad. I'm a huge fan of cryptocurrency. In particular, Bitcoin and Litecoin, because there's a lot of advantages to cryptocurrency. Some of which are the fact that it's anonymous transactions, perfect for back and forth without having to involve ourselves within a third party or a bank. It's secure. We know exactly the amount. We know exactly who it's being routed to. It's instantaneous, so we can transfer money globally across the world. And it's not regulated by any central bank, government, or authority, which unfortunately for us makes it absolutely perfect for extortion and ransomware. So take a look at this. We're moving forward to Crypto Locker. This is probably one of the bigger ones you guys are familiar with. This is the price of Bitcoin up until it just completely spiked just recently. We're back up over $1,000 now. And a lot of that's due to Chinese currency valuation. But this is what it looked like previously. Take a look, about 2013, started right about there. That's when Crypto Locker came into play. Interesting. So as soon as this particular malware variant came into play, because people were being ransomed, they had to pay in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. Price spiked to over $1,000, $1,095 to be specific. This was propagated through a particular malware botnet called Game Over Zeus. And it used what's called domain-generated algorithms. What that is a series of characters in the domain name. It's an algorithm that creates the domain. What you would do is you'd see a ton of different strings of them, and they'd only register one or two of them. This is an example of one, okay? Do you know how I can tell this is a particularly malicious DGA? At the very end, .ru. Most of the ransomware that we see propagates out of Eastern Europe. So this is what it looks like from a deeper analysis. This was the first one that we saw that really did a lot of damage. Because most ransomware prior to that would do file encryption, but this one would do file encryption not only on local disk, but on the file servers as well. So if you are an enterprise, not just a home user, this is particularly damning. This used AES 2048 asymmetrical encryption, meaning it had a private key and a public key. So it's very difficult to break encryption. And Crypto Locker is like the de facto name of crypto ransomware nowadays. It's kind of like Xerox or Kleenex, you know, a big Crypto Locker, right? So what ended up happening, particularly with Crypto Locker, was Interpol, FBI, international law enforcement got involved. They were actually able to shut down the Game Over Zeus botnet. Overnight, we saw a massive decline in ransomware infections. They were actually able to get to the command and control servers themselves and acquire public or private keys in order to facilitate file decryption. So this particular variant of ransomware is fairly dead nowadays. But you cut the head off of a hydra, 3 grow back, right? The same thing happened here with ransomware. And that kind of leads us to the next realm of ransomware, the next variant that we see, and that's Torrent Locker. This one actually was a fairly isolated situation. It started mostly in Australia and New Zealand, so let's, there we go. You get the joke? Okay. Yeah. What this was is this propagated mostly through email and phishing. What they would say is they'd send out mostly 2 different variants. It was either a tax notice or a red light violation. You get your email, and oh, I gotta pay it. You click on the link, and boom, you've been compromised. Luckily, this is fairly easy to block, okay? It was a combination of a series of commands. So it was Australia or New South Wales, followed by a dash versus postgov or whatever TLD. So you see like enforcement-aus.gov. So any organization that had the ability to block domain names with a little easy regex, you could block this. So it's fairly easy to get out. Moving forward, this is probably one of my favorite versions here. This is Alpha or Tesla Crypt. This one originally started going after video gamers. They were going after World of Tanks and World of Warcraft guys like that, locking them out of their saved files. And if you notice, these are the Cybermen from Doctor Who. If you've noticed through generations, these guys have been the same as far as being Cybermen, but they've evolved. And that's exactly what this variant of ransomware did. It's evolved as time went on. So they originally started going after video gamers, right? Well, they realized this is not as profitable as going after everybody else. So they evolved. They started expanding the amount of file extensions they went after. So they started going after image files, database files, you name it. They started using compromised websites and domains for the command and control, in addition to using exploit kits. So they were using the whole kit and caboodle and throwing a very wide net at everybody they could get. So again, they evolved. What happened was version 1 used what's called AES symmetrical keys. So the same password exists on both sides. It's fairly easy to encrypt. And the Talos group actually did. They released a product called Tesla Decrypt, and within about 2 weeks, the bad actors created version 2 of Alpha Tesla Crypt with asymmetric encryption instead. And this actually is still in the wild. Version 4.1 was just recently released back in April. But I have really good news for you guys. Well, it may not be good, but we got some news for you. I am happy to announce that Tesla Crypt is officially dead. What malware researchers found were that there was less propagation of the Alpha Tesla Crypt variants in lieu of other variants like CryptXXX. So what happened was, an analyst actually got on the Alpha Tesla Crypt website, got on their chat room, because they actually have support for this nowadays, and said, hey look, I noticed you guys are shutting down. Can I have your private key? And he actually responded. That is the actual private key for Alpha Tesla Crypt. And so shortly thereafter, decryptors were available. And now, if you are affected by this particular malware variant, I guarantee you have the option for you.
We are sorry. Said we are sorry.
Yeah, we are sorry. Are they sorry for infecting people? Or just, I don't know.
I'm sorry we got caught.
Exactly. Sorry we got caught, yeah. They thought the cops were getting onto them. You never know. So moving forward, CryptoWall. This is an interesting one because of the way it communicated on the back end. It's very similar to CryptoLocker, but with one small variant here. This exploded into 2014, okay? That was probably the biggest variant that we saw at the time. And again, it used exploit kits and compromised web servers for the command and control to communicate back to the bad guys. And we'll discuss that and demonstrate that shortly. But what's different about this particular variant was the fact that the back-end servers were communicating in an encrypted manner using Tor or I2P. Are you guys familiar with Tor, the onion router? Completely anonymous, well not completely, but fairly anonymous communication. So that's kind of the evolution of ransomware, but there's some really cool variants that I wanted to highlight for you. And when I say cool, it's just they're ingenious on how they actually either spread or how they actually compromise the system. The first one is Petya. This is the master boot record encryptor. Rather than encrypting the files themselves, this actually forces a blue screen of death and causes the system to reboot. It thinks it's doing a check disk, but in reality it's actually re-encrypting the master boot record. So it's locking you out of the entire computer, not just the files previously. You can't get into your computer at all. So that's Petya. This one's called PowerWare, and this one's particularly scary because of the fact there's no additional downloads. What it's using to do the file encryption is PowerShell, and that's native on systems since Windows 7. So it's getting into the systems through Excel spreadsheet with macros or whatnot, and then it's leveraging PowerShell to do the encryption going forward. So it's pretty crazy from an analysis perspective. It's hard to detect where the C2 is and things like that as well. Now this one is scary. This not just because it's Jigsaw from the Saw movies, but this is the Jigsaw variant. All right. I took this from my lab here, and this is a live, or not live, but this is a recorded session of what's actually happening. This is a very serious ransomware variant because it's not asking for much, $150. As compared to the majority of ransomware, we typically see the average payment of a ransom is around $670. This is only $150, but there's a reason. You're very incentivized to pay. Because if you don't, it's going to delete 100 files every hour until you pay, permanently. Got it. But if you think you're smart, you want to circumvent that, shut your machine down, right? No, that's bad. You know why? It deletes 1,000 files. So you're very much so incentivized to pay. So there is good news. Decryptors are available out now. So if you are affected by this, go talk to somebody and go get a decryptor as quickly as you can. This one is a very interesting one. This is Samsam, or Maktub. Maktub in Sanskrit is translated as "it is written," which is what encryption is. It's writing files. This one propagated through vulnerabilities in JBoss web servers. So with most of the client-side exploits, which is how these variances are propagating, they're requiring end-user interaction. Okay, double-clicking the link, double-clicking the JavaScript or whatnot. Okay, this one takes advantage of the vulnerability in the web server itself. So there's no manual interaction available. What is interesting is that this one was going after medical institutions and higher education primarily. And last time I ran a scan against the vulnerability, we still had 3.2 million vulnerable servers online. due to this jail vulnerability. Here's where it gets scary. Once it's compromised the system, it laterally moves. So it goes in and spreads. Because what's, from a ransomware actor's perspective, what's better than ransoming one machine? Ransoming all the machines, right? So that's why this was particularly scary, is that this can shut down enterprises. Not just one machine, not just one file system, every system in the organization. What was it? San Francisco Transit recently got all their systems compromised, and it was through the lateral movement of malicious software. This is my favorite one. This is the Donald Trump ransomware. He wants to build a wall around your files and make you pay for it.
That's hilarious.
So there's a new version of ransomware that we're seeing. We call this ransomware for kiddies or script kiddies. It's particularly scary because it's open source ransomware. It's freely available online. They market it as like educational ransomware. The ones that we see typically in the market right now are hidden tier and one that's aptly called ransom. They're not very creative. So, and then also this is particularly scary. This is called ransomware as a service. You don't have to be smart enough to write this stuff anymore. You just have to be malicious enough to propagate it. The big variants that we see in the world today right now is the Shark Atom ransomware variant. That was the first one. But here's the next one. This is what I call the flavor of the month. I do this talk every so often, and I always try to pick out the newest variant that I found. And this is the one that I found today. Satan. This is ransomware as a service. What this allows you to do is you go into Tor, you go to the website, you can create your own ransomware. You pick the amount that you want to set your ransom at. You set the multiplier. If they don't pay after a certain amount of days, the ransom doubles to this amount. It even gives you the instruction on how to create a malicious macro. It's so stupid a script kiddie can do. And that's what I did. And the thing is, that all you have to do is create it, and the bad guys get to keep 30%. So that's kind of the evolution of ransomware and the variants that I thought you guys want to know about. So let's do an analysis of what's actually happening in a ransomware event, okay? Oops, let's see, let's go back. So this is what it looks like. It's a fairly easy process. You look at the installation, the dropper gets executed. What happens then is what's called the phone home, or the geolocation callback. Once that happens, the data is exchanged, the encryption key exchange happens. Once that is facilitated, the encryption key is stored on the command and control server. That facilitates the actual encryption on the machine. Once the encryption is completed, then the extortion message is presented to the end user, and the extortion process is completed. This is what it kind of looks like if you're looking at it from like a web traffic perspective, okay? So we've got just several websites listed here and the dates and times. This is what infected DGA. Somebody's downloaded and clicked on a link, all right? Then what you see is the geolocation callback. If you notice IP-addr.es, if you have the ability to block websites in your organization, block that URL. What that is the geolocation callback, and it's very easy to block that and prevent the encryption exchange. And this is where the actual C2 is happening. This is where the data is being transferred to the bad guys. These are compromised websites. And a friend of mine by the name, we go by hacker handles, his name is Mr. Chen, so I created that. So this is what it looks like from the C2 side, okay? Now, before any further, I want to show off this beautiful young lady right here. That is my grandmother. That woman clicks on everything. Yeah, I've had to take ransomware off her system so many times that I've actually installed a VDI instead of a regular desktop for her. So anyway, this is what it looks like. The process is either she's affected, she clicks on a phishing link, or she goes to an infected website with malvertising that leverages an exploit kit, which then compromises her system. Her system then goes and talks to the series of compromised web servers that are either through DBA, that are registered, or hack websites themselves, and they talk through that encrypted channel, either I2P or Tor, back to the bad guys. So that's what it kind of looks like from a topological perspective. Now, I mentioned the geolocation callback. In my opinion, that's probably one of the most important phases of this entire process. The reason is because it's communicating critical information back to the bad guys. What this is doing is it's telling the bad guys where you're located. And it does that for several reasons. One, it will present the ransom message in the native language in which you are residing. I did a test, and I used the same version of cryptxxx in 2 locations, one in Dallas, Texas, where I live, and another in Mexico City. When both systems were exact copies of their BMDK, they presented the ransom message in English versus Spanish. What's also they present is a unique identifier, okay? What happens is that they send information to you so you can only be compromised once. So they try to restrict the infection of one machine, thus thwarting analysis attempts. Some variants do this, some don't, but that's what you'll see. So what you'll see is they try to thwart bad guys, people from analyzing it. The other thing I forgot to mention here is that these malicious actors understand economies of scale. They understand that pesos are devalued versus American currency. So when I did my compromised system in Mexico City, the ransom amount was only $370. I did the same thing in Dallas, and it was $520. It's crazy. These guys know that you're more apt to pay if it's somewhat reasonable that you can afford to pay. So that's kind of it from an analysis perspective. And we've really only touched on Windows as an operating system. Those have been the majority of ransomware that we find is in the Windows sector. But there's so much more to ransomware than just Windows. And that's where I've created this section, Ransomware Evolved. First one I want to touch on is the Linux encoder. This is a combination of the hidden tier open source variant, and it only attacks web servers, and it only encrypts certain folders, mostly the MySQL, Apache root folders. It only asked for 1 Bitcoin. Previously, that was not a big amount. That was, $200-300, but now it's spiking to $1,100, $1,200 sometimes. So that's now actually a significant amount of money. There have been 3 different versions of this variant of ransomware, and all 3 have been broken within a matter of months. So we're fairly confident it's been written by this guy. All right, so moving forward, this is the only version of OS X ransomware right now. This is called OS X Key Ranger. This was discovered and shut down fairly quick in March of 2016. What's interesting about this one is the fact that it piggybacked on the transmission BitTorrent web client. This was downloaded 6,000 times, but only executed and actually compromised only maybe a couple hundred systems at the time. So what this was is a combination of the previous Linux encoder, which leveraged the hidden tier as well, Linux encoder and hidden tier, the educational version. And what they would do is they hacked the bit transmission website. They had the open source code available to anybody, so they injected the source code of the ransomware into the open source of the transmission client. And then they went to the website and updated an MD5 hash. So if you check the hash value, it all checked out, right? So that was the key thing right there, is that MD5 hash. So what I found very interesting about this particular variant was the fact that Apple requires a developer key for applications to execute, and they have a way to block that. The developer key that was used to create this particular brand of ransomware was developed out of Turkey. Well, Hidden Tier was actually developed out of Turkey as well. Seems like there may have been some collusion involved. Just a hunch. Now this is iOS ransomware. See the air quotes? Ransomware. Okay, this is the Oleg Plus. This started in 2014, but we still see this today. I say it's ransomware because it meets the definition. Right? It's using a technical control to block access to your system. But it's not actually doing any encryption, and it's not doing it based on any end-user interaction, like clicking a link or opening an attachment. What happened is these guys got phished. So iOS, iCloud has the ability to do several things for an end user. One is remotely blocking or locking a machine in case you lose your phone, and remotely wiping it if you think it's compromised. Well, these bad guys are using those same features that Apple gives to its end users maliciously. So what was happening is, these guys were getting their iCloud accounts phished. They were sending a message, putting it into loss mode and say, hey, if you don't pay me within a certain amount of time, we're gonna wipe your phone. And it actually worked, people were paying. We did find out that there were 2 people in Australia that actually, or not Australia, Australian officials tracked it back to Russia, and they arrested 2 people. Probably gave them a slap on the wrist and told them to go about their way. But, yes. So this was the Oleg Plus version, but again, this is still active today. Now this is SipBlocker. SipBlocker, well, let me take a step back. Android is absolutely not a secure platform when it comes to ransomware. There are so many different variants of ransomware in the market that I just can't really pick one to talk about, except for this one. SipLocker is one of the ones that actually started doing the first level of file encryption on the Android OS. This one was discovered in 2014. And prior to this, we were seeing just mostly the screen lockers, the ones that you can boot into safe mode and disable and you get back into your system. This one actually started doing encryption of files. So it started just going after JPEGs, doing just the photos, and then it branched out and started doing more. This also was very similar to CryptoLocker in the fact that it used C2 communication using Tor. So this was a fully matured variant of ransomware on a mobile platform. So that's why I thought it warranted highlighting to you guys today. Luckily, there is a decryptor available for this particular variant, but like I said, there have been hundreds of different variants that have come about since this one came about in 2014. This is the most evil variant of ransomware I've ever seen in my entire life. This is the adult player, extortion at its finest. All right, see that icon right there? It's probably not very work safe, but what this is, you download this and it functions as a porn movie player. Yeah, really works. Thing is though, is while it's working as a porn movie player, it's taking photos and video using the front-facing camera. Yeah, you see where this is going? Yeah, so if then it locks, shows you those photos, and if you don't pay, it sends it to everybody on your contact list. Very, very evil stuff. Yeah. Luckily, there is a decryptor available. So what's next in the world of ransomware? There are tons of things that we can attack from an attacker's perspective. I thought this comic is just hilarious. All the different things, the Internet of Things is going to attack us. I'm turning off the heat until you warm up my bank account. Send me $25. I'll tell everyone on your social network that you were stupid enough to buy an internet-connected brain. Yeah. So yeah, Institute of Critical Infrastructure states that IoT presents an infinite attack surface, and I absolutely agree with that. So think about it. What's next in this thing? Are we talking about healthcare, pacemakers, insulin pumps? All these things have been exploited by penetration testers and vulnerability people. So these are definite attack surfaces. We just saw at DEF CON 2 years ago, we were able to drive a car off the road into a cornfield. Imagine if we could monetize that in an extortion possibility. Your house, obviously, is a whole bed of things to exploit here. Well, guess what, guys? The future is now. DEF CON, just last year, we were able to actually develop a way to compromise an internet-connected thermostat. So what we were able to do, not we, but researchers were able to develop code to extort people out of their home ACs. What they would do is either crank up the AC or turn on the heat until you paid your ransom. Yeah, so pretty crazy stuff. And then this is actually not, that was just conceptual. This is real. This is just in December of 2016. LG TVs are subject to Android ransomware. This guy was ransomed, and it's on the side, but it was charging him $500 to pay the ransom. However, think about it this way. He tried to call LG for support, and they wanted to charge him $340. So he was getting extorted one way or another. Yeah. So, all right, so we've talked about ransomware. We've all the different variants, and how scary it is, and really what's at risk here. Let's talk about protection. Okay, how can we protect ourselves from this sort of stuff? I've got a lot of ideas. Some of them are common sense to you guys. Some of them may be like a pipe dream, but hear me out on here. First thing, backup. Backup off. That's probably a good rule to live by. But here's the kicker. Disconnect your backups when they're not in use, because unfortunately, they might get encrypted too. Next thing is to review access to your shared resources. To be perfectly honest, there's no reason for your secretary or the housekeeping staff to have access to the payroll file server. So it requires auditing, but if you can make sure that only the privileged people have access to the privileged resources, then you can prevent having those privileged resources ransomed. Also, this is a good one here for you sysadmins. Disconnect your network resources when they're not in use. Most people, as part of their startup have the mapping of drives as part of that startup utility. There's no reason to have those network resources available to you if you don't necessarily need them. So I recommend only connecting to network shares when you're actually using them and not having them set up for you and provisioned automatically. And this is an important one. Training your end users about phishing and social media attacks and drive-by downloads. So I really advocate teaching end users specifically about phishing, and phishing. Antivirus. Antivirus does actually provide some control in protecting your organization. However, unless you're using a next-gen AV product, like some of the gentlemen down the hall over there, their product works very, very good at protecting things. But at the same time, signature-based AV does work if you update it. That's the key. Additionally, patching your OS and your software, because like we saw with SamSam and MacTub, the vulnerabilities were how they were getting in. So you can't exploit vulnerabilities that have been patched. Also, preventing malvertising and code injection. This can be done for home users just as well. What I recommend is using pop-up blockers. So these are just a few that I recommend. AdBlock, uBlock Origin, Ad Defender, all work excellent. So that kind of mitigates the third-party ad distribution network and subjecting you to malvertising because you're blocking access to them. Another product that I highly recommend is a product called NoScript. What this will do is really lock down your browsing experience, but also it locks down your browsing experience. So you don't get as robust and visual experience, but it will be secure. And then last, I recommend sandboxing, virtualizing your browsing experience. This virtualizes the web browser into a sandbox node, so in the event that a system is compromised, it's only isolated to that segment of memory. I'm very happy to say that the major browser developers are developing this technology into their current and next-gen products. So you're going to see Chrome with built-in sandboxing capacity. Mozilla is doing the same, and IE actually just recently released one as well. And this one's kind of self-explanatory. End of life. End of life is for a reason. With some of the CIA leaks, most recently, we're seeing that 0 days are being released to the public on end-of-life software. They're not going to be developing any sort of remediation to these vulnerabilities. So always stay current with your current versions of software and hardware. So, anybody know what that logo is? We shouldn't. No. This is the pirate book. And this kind of leads to my next point. Only trust trusted sources. Shouldn't be downloading things from BitTorrent, illicit software, right? Follow the pack. Seems kind of counterintuitive from what you've always been told, you know, but you don't have to be bleeding edge here. You know, we're talking about our security. Let other people take the ball instead of us. So specifically in regards to the mobile platforms, I think the Apple Marketplace is a fairly safe environment to download code. You can trust the Apple Store as they vet their code. Android, on the other hand, absolutely not the case. So I look at approaching Android a different way. Instead of trusting the marketplace, trust the individual developers. So what I would do is make sure that the products that I'm downloading are not through some crazy third party. I always make sure that they have 5,000 or more positive reviews and that they're 4 or 5 stars. So trust the individual developer and not the marketplace. And this one's a little sketchy. FFIEC, which has jurisdiction over the federal banking industry, will actually penalize an organization for the amount of open source software in their organization. I'm sorry, that's not going to fly with me. I'm a hacker, and you can have my open source from my cold, dead body. It's not going to happen. So what I recommend is validating hashes. Not just validating hashes from the site that we're downloading, which is exactly what happened in the OS X Key Ranger, the Macintosh one. You want to validate your hashes from a third-party website. So you can assume one system or website is breached, but you can't do for 2. It's even better if you can validate multiple hashes on multiple sites. So if you're going to use open source software and you're going to compile your own code, validate hashes from multiple sources. Intrusion prevention systems. These things are amazing. The capacity of what IPSs and IDSs can do some amazing things. Have you guys seen the commercial of the bank getting robbed? And the security guard just sitting there and like, I'm a bank monitor. You're getting robbed. That's exactly what's happening with most IPSs. IPSs, prevention systems, have the capacity to block. But many organizations are so gun-shy because they're afraid they're going to actually prevent some production system that they don't actually implement block mode. So get off the pot and implement block mode. This one's a little bit, I don't know, it's controversial. I think that web content providers should be responsible for the browsing experience of their end users. Therefore, if you're going to present ads, host your own ads. Control the access of what you are distributing to your end users. If you leverage a third-party website to distribute your ad content, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use a web block or a pop-up blocker. So with that said, until companies will host their own ad content, I'm going to protect myself. So that's the recommendation I have for web content providers. If New York Times actually served up their own ads, they wouldn't have to worry about advertising. And macros. Don't really have to say this, but I'm going to. If you don't enable macros, you're going to shrink your attack surface significantly. There are many ways to do this. Most often, I recommend if you have enterprise access over your security program, implement group policy to block execution of macros. And this is a new one. I actually picked this one up just yesterday. Most home users don't have access to group policy. They don't have access to enterprise class security professionals like ourselves here today. So what I recommend doing is taking the JavaScript files, the HTE files, the PowerShell, bat files and command files, the things that the actual scripts that are executing that kick off that ransomware process, disassociate them from the engines that run them. Because let's face it, your grandma is not going to be a JavaScript developer, okay? So what I recommend is using some sort of reassociating that particular file execution or that extension with Notepad. Very simple. You do that, you're going to bring down the amount of ransomware in your organization by roughly 90%, guaranteed. What I've done for you guys ahead of time is if you check out my blog, Meteor Music, big rock falling from the sky, if you go there, I've actually written you a script already. So just download the script, run it, and it'll reassociate all your files for you. So.
And then ask for how much money. And then ask for how much money.
The reason I'm here today is to give back to the community. And that's my gift to you.
What's the Bitcoin address?
My Bitcoin address? So let's see, we touched on IPS, web content, macros, and file extensions. Advanced mitigation techniques. No, ransomware doesn't want to just exist on one machine. We want to extend the capacity of our extortion to the world and as many machines as possible. So we have to prevent lateral movement. So how do we go about doing that? And this actually is a fairly easy thing to do if you think about it, but it's hard to actually implement unless you have a tool that can facilitate that. We want to make sure that there's no password reuse in your entire organization. So many organizations have that local administrator account for every endpoint the same. It's just easier that way. The golden image is the same, right? Same thing with your server infrastructure. The same local admin password is across the board. What that means is that presents an attack surface. We can laterally move using pass the hash with that credential. So we want to make sure that the credentials are complex, unique, and frequently changing. Next one, enabling of least privilege. So revoking the local administrative rights of your users. There should be no reason why you should have local administrator access to your standard users. The majority of the ransomware that we have found and discussed today propagates with local administrative access. There are a handful that don't, but disabling local administrative access will prevent the majority of the ransomware that we find. What's even better is application control. So if we can control which binaries are actually executing in our organization, we can protect ourselves. So the combination, and I think there it is, I've got it on here, US CERT, let's see, US CERT and FBI stated in their most recent documentation that the combination of application control and least privilege is the way to block ransomware in your environment. Lastly, we want to isolate the critical assets. So if you can prevent lateral movement to your domain controllers, to your DNS server, to your ESX systems, you can prevent those systems from being compromised. So what we recommend is using proxy servers, bastion hosts, as we say, to isolate your privileged hashes on those systems rather than the endpoints. And so the combination of credential management, session isolation, and least privilege application control, that's a really good way to lock down your network. So I'm going to leave you guys with some final thoughts before I let you on your way. Reasons why you should pay. I've been infected by ransomware. What do I do? Well, here's some of the recommendations why you should pay. You get your files back. Maybe. We've seen often that it's almost like a pyramid scheme. We have developers and distributors, and some of those times those guys don't always get along. And so you may pay a ransom, but the guys want more. And so there's no guarantee you may get your data back. I love this GIF here. You see the guy here? That's the ransomware guy. Watch what he does. Boom. He's coming back. There we go. So yeah, also, FBI previously said this was the easiest way to pay. I forget the gentleman's name, but he actually said that sometimes the code is just so good, the easiest way to get your files back is to pay. I disagree. And hey, it might be cheaper than implementing an IPS, implementing, hiring staff to implement your policies, mitigating password management. Some of them might be cheaper, right? Not really. Here's why you shouldn't pay. The US CERT and FBI are now clearly on the same page, and everybody is saying no, don't pay. It's absolutely not the best way to do it. FBI does not condone payment of ransom, as payment of extortion monies may encourage continued criminal activity or be used to facilitate serious crimes. We've actually seen cyber criminals, money that they have been able to extort has facilitated terrorist organizations. Abu Sayyaf has funneled money to ISIL, and that's through cyber attacks. So we don't want to do that. And you think it might be cheaper, but it's really not. Disclosure of the breach itself is not cheap. Anyone familiar with Hampton when they were breached? Yeah, pretty bad stuff there. The amount of money paid just in postage stamps. We're not even talking about remediation or technical controls. We're talking about postage stamps. $9 million. Yeah. And also, these guys talk. Just because you pay doesn't mean somebody else is going to come right back at you and attack you. Copycat attacks are real because they know they got a real fish on the line. They know you paid once. What'll stop them from paying again? And I've talked on this before. Just because you pay, there's no guarantee you'll get your files back. You paid, they got what they want. They don't have to deliver. In fact, there are several variants of ransomware right now that present an extortion message, but they never encrypted the files. They just deleted them. So there's no guarantee you'll get your files back. And then lastly, the criminals win. Do we want the criminals to win? No! All right, so help. I've been ransomed. What do I do? And this is actually a real circumstance here. What I recommend, contact your friendly neighborhood hacker. We're here to help. Research the variant, all right? And this is actually the real story that happened. A gentleman reached out to me on Twitter and said, help. One of my friends has been affected by ransomware. His wife died, and he lost all the photos of his wife that were stored on that machine. He was writing a book. That book was ransomed as well. He is distraught, has no idea what to do. Help him out. I had no idea if I could help him or not, but figured why not? We'll give it a shot. Researched the variant, we found out that it was the cryptxxx variant of ransomware. And so what we were able to do is we were able to find the encrypted file, and we found an original copy. Webmail is super awesome for this because what you can do is check your sent files, and you'll have an original copy of a file. You'll have the encrypted file. You can run the decryptor against those two files, and it will extract the private key. So look at your inbox or your sent email when you've in a ransomware situation. Take the machine offline immediately. Previously, we were looking at just basics data encryption. That's it. The variants that we're seeing nowadays are going one step further, dumping credentials. So they're taking your browser cache. They're finding the credentials that are stored on your browsers, such as your banking account number and things like that, or your email address, to then do even more extortion, more identity theft and whatnot. So take your machine offline and change all your passwords. I don't care how you do it, rotate all your passwords. Even if your data, you don't think it's been compromised, but if you've been affected by ransomware in any measure, I don't care, rotate all your passwords. And then patience. Patience is a virtue here, guys. Because let's face it, every variant of ransomware will eventually be decrypted. With the advent of quantum computing on the horizon, encryption may actually go all the way. I have no idea what's going to happen, but the fact is that all variants of ransomware will be eventually decrypted. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not a year from now. hold on to your hard drive because you may get your data back eventually. One of the last things I want to leave you with is this. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. My grandmother beat that into my head, and so I'm going to beat it into yours. If you take the proactive controls ahead of time, you don't have to worry about being extorted for money, because it's just never happened. So thank you all very much for listening to me ramble on. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them at this time. Let me see, I think, there we go. Yeah, there's my blog and my Twitter and website. So, yes. Oh, ip-addr.es.
Yeah, what was that sheet again? Can you pull that one back up? Because it had a lot of good information about.
The page that has the IP, ADR.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's make this easy.
Right there.
There we go. So there we go. ip-addr.es. Block that and you're going to be good.
I cannot see.
But the thing is, though, at-home users typically don't have the technical controls to be able to block stuff like that. So if you've got like OpenDNS, use something like that to block that website if they haven't already.
This program,
Yes, yes, those files.
Do you have on your site like a list of tools or decryptors?
No, I don't. But I can tell you that
At least a list.
Symantec has a really good one, and Dispersion. They have one called Rando Decryptor that is amazing. It does like 50 different versions. Yes, sir.
there's a website called noransomware.org
Yeah.
that is an amalgamation of decryptors.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Well, with that said, I'm going to be here all day. And if you have any questions, like I said, I just want to give back to the community. So feel free to email me if you have any questions at all. I am always here to help.